recognition. Item 4 will be selection of chair pro temp and a vice pro temp, and then 5 will be change the July and September 2023 meeting dates due to holidays. Those are the only changes that I have. Any other questions on the agenda? Do I have a motion?
Motion with the changes.
I have a motion from Naeem, second from Jordan. And before we call that motion to order, let's welcome our new member, Jordan Failford, to the Planning and Zoning Board. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Thank you so much. You want to say anything to the board members? We can go down and kind of introduce ourselves a little bit. That might be good. Miss Kathy, you want to go first?
Did you met me at the last meeting, Naeem Richard?
Ms. Kathy works at the high school. She gives swim lessons, the definition of old Newberry. Never, right? Don's longtime Newberry resident, has 1, 2, 3 businesses in town. How many? What are you up to these days? He's an entrepreneur. Just two businesses. Yeah. Naeem runs every Facebook page in town. I think he has a day job, but nobody knows what that is. He's also the chair of our opioid task force as well. I'm Jordan. We've had the pleasure of meeting a few times. This is Scott. He's been with the city since the city started in 1895, right?
Definition of old Newberry.
Yeah. And Mr. Brian Thomas, have you guys had a chance to meet yet? Brian's your go-to guy. So he wears like 5 or 6 hats in Newberry: economic development, planning and zoning, all those kinds of things. So if you got any questions about your backup material, Brian is your guy. You can always text me also. Yeah. All right, so we have a motion seconded on the floor. All those in favor, signify. I'm sorry. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Hey, before you continue, I'm getting comments from the YouTube page that the volume's really low.
We want them muted, otherwise we get a bad feedback. We'll keep going and keep working on it. All right, with that, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Jordan, you're our new member. You want to lead us in the pledge? To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published?
Motion.
I have a motion from Naeem.
A second.
Second from member Don. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to our new item 3, which is past chair recognition. It's not easy to have to prepare for these meetings, read the backup material. This meeting is pretty straightforward and simple, but sometimes we've got 6 or 7 quasi-judicials. Sometimes there's contention. I think our record is 1 o'clock in the morning. We were here one night with about 100 people in the room. Miss Wanda stayed here with a broken tailbone till the whole way through. She made it. But to have to think about the backup material and how you're going to vote and chair the meeting at the same time takes an awful lot of skill. So I wanted to just take a minute and recognize Naeem for 3 years. 3 years of chairing the P&Z as a voting member. And in recognition, I had to hide it back here. In recognition of that service, we'd like to present you with a plaque that recognizes the years that you've been chairing, the service that you did, and now you have your very own gavel to take home with you. Maybe we'll get a picture. Yeah. Don't let the daughter get at it, otherwise you'll have a lump on your head.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Maybe at the end of the night, we'll get a picture with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate it.
We appreciate you. New item 4 is we need to select a chair pro temp and a vice chair pro temp. I'm not absent very much, but everybody gets sick and has vacations and those kinds of things. So just in case I'm not here, we need somebody. And just in case that person's also not here that same night, we need one more we've never had to go, all the way out, cause then you don't have a quorum anyway, so, board?
I wanna, if I can, I wanna motion or select, Donald Long as consideration for new chair, or pro tem
Pro
chair.
tem, all right, I have a nomination for Don, is that nomination seconded? I got a second from, Jordan. Don was the vice chair for at least two of those years, so we appreciate that, well, all right, let's go ahead and vote on, is there any other nominations for, chair pro tem? All right, so, do we need it, we don't need a motion for, no, just, okay, let's do the the vice pro chair, and then we'll put them all into one. Anybody want to be vice, in case me and Don are also gone?
I'll do it.
All right, I got Kathy.
That never happens, right?
Watch,
Wow.
July.
I'm gonna go out on a limb, because I'm so old, you never know. Yeah.
All right, so I need a motion for Don to become the, chair pro tem and Miss Kathy to be the vice chair pro
I'll
tem.
motion for Donald Long to be the pro tem chair and Kathy Thomas to be the vice chair, pro tem vice chair.
Okay, I got a motion from Naeem, a second from Jordan. Any more comments, questions, motion on the floor from the, dais? Public comments, questions, motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And that brings us to, did I skip the, item two? I sure did. Okay, well, we'll go back to item two, the Newberry Urban Service. This is our business. Yeah. We'll get it out. All right, Brian, take it away. Tell us about the Urban Services Area Boundary. This project has been going on for a little bit.
Yes, it has. So this is ordinance 2023-21, which would authorize the alteration and amendment to the urban services area boundary. So just a quick recap, back on February 10th of 22, Commission held public hearing, public workshop rather, on whether to revise the existing boundary. The results of that were commissioners and citizens basically drew up a number of alternate maps. Everybody got a chance to express their opinion on what the map should look, or the urban services boundary should look like.
1 second, Brian, just for the folks watching at home, just a quick recap on what the urban service boundary is. So, and I know we're gonna have, can you go ahead and fast forward to a map real quick, because it'll be a lot easier for me to explain that. So, right now, that line is our urban services boundary. What an urban services area boundary does is it says, inside that line, we encourage you to develop. Outside that line, we're not gonna approve development. So neighborhoods, density, those things inside the area boundary, outside that line, green space, agriculture, those kinds of things. So now that I'm sure that's in there somewhere,
And once again, Mr. Mayor, thank you for reminding me to give the background,
Yeah.
because you're right, not everybody always remembers it, and the viewing population of 5 or 10
Yeah.
might know that. So, yeah, it basically says you can develop within, you cannot develop at any density without, and I had another thought that I was going to express.
Well, if you go
I say
backwards.
the squiggly line is, of course, the black line is our kind of crazy municipal boundary, but the red line is the urban services.
and we
boundary.
are trying periodically to close that in and make it more contiguous. So we were aggressively looking at annexations to try to close down the Swiss cheese. That takes a lot of staff work, so now we're trying to cluster everybody that says they want to annex and kind of do it all at one time and just do a whole bunch of them. That way we're not continually working on that.
And the primary purpose of the urban services boundary is to prevent urban sprawl. And so, in the past, without an urban services boundary, if a developer came in and said, well, I'm willing to spend $3 million to run water and sewer outside, of your urbanized area, they might have been allowed to do that. With the urban services boundary, it says, no, this is where the community and the commission has decided we want to put a hard stop. And so, it's not that it can't be amended, but you can't just you can't amend it easily. It has to go before the commission by ordinance and go back to the state for review and that kind of thing, so.
So when you hear people in the public talk about irresponsible growth, an urban services area by design, the USA, is to have responsible growth. It's saying this is the area that we want to grow. The reason that we got here to amending it is because that circle was just, you can see somewhere 15 years ago, someone just kind of put a pin in the middle of Newberry and just drew a line and said, okay, there it is. And the commission said, we need to do that a little bit more thoughtfully. We need to do that with a little bit more strategy and think about where we want to encourage development, where we want to encourage growth. One of the problems with the existing line is that it's unclear if my land is both in and out, what does that mean? So one of the things that we're going to look at is how do we answer that problem of bifurcating someone's parcel, of having it in and out, and just figuring out where should we be encouraging growth and where should we have a line in the sand and say, past this, we're going to keep it in ag, or at least we're going to keep it in green space. So I think that kind of gets us up to a history of why we're having this conversation and what's the point of this conversation.
Yes, sir.
All right, now we can back up.
So, there were a series of 5 potential alternative maps that were ultimately derived out of the public discussion and the commissioner's input. And then after several more rounds of public discussion, got to the point where we narrowed it to 3, then we narrowed it down to 1, and the final direction from the commission was essentially keep the urban services boundary we have. We're neither going to expand it or contract it, but we want it to follow actual parcel lines as opposed to this radius that leaves some question as to whether you're in or out if you're bisected, if your parcel is bisected.
And I would say, interestingly, out of all of those workshops where we had tables and we had big maps and everybody could come with a Sharpie and draw what they think it, I don't remember one resident coming and asking to considerably shrink it. We had a lot of residents say it needed to be bigger. Gainesville's urban service area is its entire city limits, but nobody showed up. So again, just kind of giving everyone a little bit of food for thought of who shows up to these workshops, because I hear a lot on social media and sometimes other people saying, oh, well, it's rampant growth, exponential. We held 5 of these workshops. The only people that showed up either wanted it to be bigger or wanted it to basically stay the same.
So once again, here's the depiction of our existing urban services boundary. And so if you superimpose the proposed boundary, we went back to our GIS consultant and said, okay, here's the formula. If there's 50% or greater of a bisected parcel within the urban services ring, include it in the proposed urban services boundary. If there's greater than 50% outside of the ring, then exclude it. And so this is what we came up with. It really expands the urban services boundary slightly, but not substantially. It just squares everything off by parcel lines. So there might be a 5%, if that, increase in the overall urban services boundary just because we're picking up some large parcels on the periphery.
And if you
I think we saw this a while back where you want to make sure you don't cut off people's parcels and make it a little more easy to kind of cut them in with.
turn your mic on.
This makes it a lot easier for people to have their parcels fully inside the urban service area.
Well, the urban service area line has tremendous legal bearing. If I buy property inside, the city has projected that is developable, right? So to take that away from somebody who purchased land inside the urban service area is a big deal. To expand it and give somebody that is also a pretty big deal. I want to, before you leave that slide, the northeastern quadrant of Newberry, that's where all the mines are. So there's not going to be a whole lot of activity except for things like the zip line, right, that are going out there. It's the western section that is primarily still an awful lot of open farmland that's in that section there. A lot of what's happened to the south is already kind of developed, or things are happening, projected to happen right there. And that is 46, right?
Correct. The bottom The flat portion there, the flat line, that is Southwest 46th Avenue. And coincidentally, the northern boundary also runs along Northwest 46th Avenue. The eastern boundary is 202nd Street, and obviously, as you can see there, the western boundary is the county line.
Is that northern tip of that circle Gatorback? Right above?
I think it's right outside. It might be.
Or is
split.
Gatorback
Yeah,
falls outside? the
Gatorback
urban?
is just north of the proposed line.
What kind of impact would that have on Gatorback if they decide to wanna?
The,
Because Gatorback obviously is it's growing, it's getting bigger. What's the likelihood of, we put this in place,
Yeah, it's a
Gatorback
special
falls outside of it? Would they be able to be provided some special exception?
It already is
to-
a special exception.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
you mean for providing
Like, they-
municipal utilities?
yeah, if things get expanded out that way and they see potential for more growth for them, I just don't want them to be hindered just because they fall right outside of it and they've been there for all this time producing.
I mean, right now, they're already outside of it, so it's really no different than the situation they're in right now.
Okay, so they would just continue on with the special exception.
Their activity requires a special exception.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
whether they were inside or outside.
Now, if the commission at some future date decided that it was in the community's best interest to extend municipal utilities out there, then they could always go through the process to amend it and include that additional section or area. It'd be up to the commission to decide that that was in the community's best interest to do so. And so without the overlay of the old line, that's what the new line would look like.
Brian, the northern section there, I know I'm not actually sure the status of the application for the new subdivision. Does this, will
It
we
basically
be-
incorporates all of the proposed new subdivision.
So we're not gonna, in 6 months, just because that application, we don't have to go through this process just to go another quarter of a mile north, I guess is the question.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so northwest 46 would still be the line in the sand,
Yes.
okay?
And so, with that, staff's recommendation is to discuss the proposed boundary and we recommend approval of ordinance 2023-21 to the commission.
Thoughts, Jordan? Push it hard sometimes,
Oh, there
once
we
it
go.
turns green.
Brian, can you go back to the overlay map? What, you said it was not much of a change, but do you know the actual acreage count or parcel count difference there for the delta between the old and the new?
I had that thought late last week, and I sent an email to our consultant if he could give me a measurement of that, and he has not gotten back to me yet on that.
I'm gonna ask you another question then. Do you know the proposed or already underdeveloped percentage of that current?
Just eyeballing it, looking at it, I would say that maybe 20 to 25% of the existing urban service boundary is as yet undeveloped or developed into small 5 and 10 acre ranchettes that are unlikely to develop further in the future.
Sandia Park is at the southern end. It runs parallel with 46. So from the dark green all the way down, that is going to pretty much be developed. Like I said, the only part there that's really left to develop would be the northwestern quadrant. The southeastern quadrant, I would say that's probably all, because I don't know where that state of those applications are, but that's also, we have 2 developments that have come in and have rights all the way to probably here, I would say. And then this area right here was just approved, that's the Weisman. This area to the north is already, so, and then once you get past that, you're into the mines. But I was impressed, so it's a 5% increase, you said?
At most, I think.
Okay. And I can't, on the overlay, was it, is it going all the way out to the county line in the
Yes, sir.
new proposed?
The,
That's probably where the bulk of the 5% comes from?
anywhere the red line exceeds the radius there is an add-on. So there's a couple of fairly decent-sized parcels to the north and south of that western boundary, and then up in the northeast quadrant, you can see there's a fairly large chunk added in there because of the size. It's a single parcel.
Right.
And then there's a little bit of contraction on the southeast
But this is
border.
mostly mining area here. It's just a run with the parcels.
South of 235, and then, of course, the Florida Rock on the north side of 235, that's correct. So,
And 202 here, between 202 and Jonesville, you've got 6 miles? Roughly?
maybe 3 to 4.
5. So you've got, that's the green space that we're trying to protect, because the county's urban service area, where you're seeing development in Jonesville just west of Publix, that's the edge of their urban services area. So if the county holds their line and we hold 202, then there really should be pretty much green space in between us and Jonesville. So when you hear people talk about Newberry is gonna hit Gainesville, not if we hold this line. If we hold 202, all of our development will happen inside our urban core. But the flip side of that is we also need the county to hold their urban services line, because so far, it's mainly been Gainesville heading towards us, not particularly Newberry headed towards Gainesville.
Where's their line?
Their line is right past,
About 154th.
yeah, what's the neighborhood that's right there? We got a lot of kids that go there.
Brook, not that far.
Brookside.
Brookside, yeah.
And they've got another development going in just on the south side. But that's the edge of their urban services line, right there.
And actually, if I remember correctly, in between that area and pretty much all around the outside of our urban service, or the city's municipal boundary, is the county's infamous
GMA.
growth management area. And so even if those folks were to annex into the city of Newberry, they'd still be under the governance of Alachua County for growth management.
But I remind people that Jonesville is also in the growth management, and Jonesville is the area that has had exponential growth. So Newberry has grown between 3 and 6% for the last 20 years. Jonesville was a roadsies and a gas station when I was a kid, and Jonesville now has a higher population than the city of Newberry. So, but because Jonesville residents, their address says Newberry and they're 32669, an awful lot of them, and some of our county commission, believe that Jonesville is Newberry, and so they kind of bunch us all together, which is another reason why, in my mind, it's really important to have that green belt in between us so that we don't get swallowed up by that. Any other questions for Brian about what the USA is, the purpose, what we're trying to do, the goal? That's a hard line to hold. We have property owners just on the other side that would really like to expand the urban services area eastward so that they can develop. So it's going to be a challenge to kind of hold that line in the sand and say, we've got plenty of land inside our urban service area for development. We really like you to develop inside the USA first.
So, question, I'm sorry.
Nice.
So, right outside 202, just east of the maze, we have, you got Newberry you got CFL Church, you got a medical doctor there, you got a thrift store. Obviously, they're not gonna have water and sewer from us, but is there anything, I want the green space, but what's gonna happen with people that are gonna be like, hey, I can just work off of septic and build something here?
Nope.
Are they gonna be, or is this like grandfathered in?
The ones that are already, Mr. Mayor, the ones that are chair, the ones that are already there are grandfathered in.
And they were approved by Alachua
And
County.
they were approved a long time ago.
Before they were annexed in.
Yeah,
Before they were annexed in, okay.
right. And so, those are likely to remain the same for quite some time.
Like, I'm talking about like Pet
But-
Paradise Gainesville, that's, you know.
approved by
anything
Alachua County.
around there that's zoned agriculture would have to be rezoned to a commercial category, and that's at the discretion of the commission. Right now, the only category that allows for commercial development outside of the urban services boundary, well, outside of the actual provision of water and wastewater, is commercial neighborhood, which is small scale only.
You guys
designed for
approved
neighborhood.
that for the, what was it called?
The Persimmons Farm.
No,
Yeah,
the
that
woman
one's
on the other side that was gonna do the
Beer
beer
garden,
garden, yeah.
Oh,
That's a commercial neighborhood.
which by the way is now for sale. Which really irks me because it's like we approved this thinking that it was gonna happen and now she's selling it as a,
She's selling?
she's selling it and she's promoting it as like it's already built beer garden. It's like, no, it's a giant field.
So that was our
Please.
number one concern about that place.
Well,
Yep.
it only gets that zoning if it has that plan. So the next person can have that exact same plan.
Actually, when I spoke to her last, she wanted to, the owner asked if she sold it, would the new buyer be able to develop it with the same special exception? And, the special exception has actually expired at this point because of lack of
there you go.
development progress.
There you go.
So
if you go
it's
to-
essentially just.
If you go right now to Realtor.com and look at it, it's for sale and the pictures they're using is the mock-ups out presented to our board of the beer garden, which is kind
Having
of,
been a
Realtors
former
never
Realtor,
lied, though.
yeah, I was gonna say, having been a former Realtor, I can tell you that.
Every
they are
house on the dirt
always
road is
100%
about to be
accurate.
paved and.
well, so here's, so
shouldn't
the
be
dilemma
sarcastic,
becomes
just
like
that.
on social media and all the forums, we take things with a grain of salt. Everybody's a doctor, everybody's a lawyer on social media. I don't know if you know this. And everybody's a cop, apparently. They see that and it sparks fuel like crazy because people are like, well, we're creating this urban service area, but yet here's this lady selling, I don't know, 5 acre or whatever the 1 acre beer garden. And she's posting it as a beer garden. And it's like,
I mean, as that plan was accepted and approved by the commission because of its specific types of uses, which are primarily agricultural related, it really shouldn't upset anybody based on the nature of the development. But again, when I looked into it, the development period has expired because of lack of development activity.
so is it, now that it's expired, it's back to ag? Is that correct, or is it,
It never changed from ag.
it never changed from ag? Okay.
It's a special exception.
Brian, if I can, how did you guys land on greater than 50%? Was that just the number that made sense?
It just was a number that made logical sense.
What is the turnaround time if we do this new USA and then the commission decides that Newberry got exponential growth at 35%, some ungodly amount, and we have to edit the USA again? What is the typical turnaround? Is it a whole fiscal
To
year?
expand it or
Yes,
to?
to expand it.
It's probably right about 6 months. Because in addition to going for the Planning and Zoning Board for a hearing and the commission for the first hearing of the ordinance, then this type of text amendment is considered, it has to be considered by the state. And so they go for their review, which is up to 60 days.
But that wouldn't be a 6-month delay because the processes can run concurrently. So if you come to us and say, I'll have a project and everyone loves it and the town's behind it, but it requires that, you still have to go through zoning, you still have to go through site development, all those kinds of things. So-
And presumably it would be on a large enough scale project that they also would have to go to state review, at
Other,
least for the land use portion.
other comments, questions, thoughts? Brian, can you go back to the recommended motion? All right, there are no,
Mr. Mayor, you want me to read?
oh, yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
This is
always a
ordinance
good
number
idea.
2023-21, CPA 23-09, an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to the amendments of future land use plan map, future land use element and sub-elements of the urban services area boundary of the city of Newberry comprehensive plan under the expedited state review amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2023-21 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now with the ordinance into the record, do I have a motion? Do I have that motion?
Motion
I have
to
a
approve.
motion from Jordan,
Second.
second from Naeem. Comments or questions on the motion before the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's gonna end our public hearing ordinance, to take us back to agenda. And we still need to look at our July and September meeting dates. Brian, is that you?
I believe it is.
If everybody can grab their calendars out. Let's handle
Well, I
July
think-
first.
I think, just to start it off, on the last meeting, forgive me, Jordan, but yeah, on the last meeting, we were discussing that if the city is open July third, because July third's technically not the holiday, that we would keep our meeting on July third, because the fourth, there
We
is.
didn't have enough information. Have we had that information now?
Is
Mr.
Mike
Mayor, as
giving
far
you
as
guys
I
a
know,
holiday off?
we're open on the 3rd and closed on the 4th. It would really come down to whether the individual
We have a
board
quorum.
members had plans to be gone for the extended weekend because of the holiday.
I do.
Sir, that's private information. I don't.
So what's staff's recommendation? The fifth? You're out on the fifth?
Staff is neutral on it. We're happy to do either one, Mr. Mayor.
You're out the whole week?
I'm out starting the fourth. That's why I was saying the third would be perfect, because I'm
Wow.
out the rest of the week.
What's
Yeah, she's a whole week.
what's on the docket? What's pressing right now? Do we need to have one the second week, or can we just void July and come back in September?
If you're not here, we have a chair. Our senior planner is gonna check.
Okay.
She does that here. She's saying
Yeah.
we could put a restaurant there.
Colorado.
All right. You wanna come up?
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
She's also claiming that you could put restaurants.
We have the best restoration, that's also tentative. We have Eden Garden, that's tentative, preliminary plat. Then we have Postwood, that's also tentative, and then LDR Solar Farm, that's also tentative.
So everything we have right now is still listed as tentative.
Yeah, because we haven't heard back from the developers.
Well, we have one person who's out on the third. Everyone else is here on the third?
No.
I have you as being out. And you're half and half? Okay, when will your half and half be confirmed? Because Jordan can be here on the third, Naeem can be here on the third. I mean, my thought is just to skip July and make September a hefty
August.
meeting. Or
August.
a hefty meeting.
Go back to school? You would.
We are closed on the third.
The city is closed on third, or Folsom Walker is closed?
Fools and Walker, and then we're in all the attorneys are at the FMA conference starting on the fifth.
Okay.
I'll be out.
Okay. What about July 17th?
We don't have any.
We could slip in between the two commission meetings,
Works for us.
July 17th?
We don't have any item on
You guys are in charge, you do whatever y'all want.
24th.
Do you have any items yet on the 24th?
July 17th?
And on 10th also, we have all 10.
Because I would imagine that all those that are tentative at this
We
point
have the commission.
USA on the 24th.
will certainly be
Oh,
ready to go
yes.
a couple weeks into July,
At 6 again?
6 p.m.,
So-
July 17th,
July 17th, okay.
all right? I'll
Staff
text,
certainly will.
I'll text Ann. All right, the other holiday is September?
Labor Day, the fourth?
I know I'll be going there.
On the 5th? The whole week? Anybody else?
Planning things starting.
Is staff's recommendation the 5th?
Or the 11th?
11th is commission meeting.
Mr. Mayor, 5th could work. It's the start of the annual Florida APA conference, but not all of the planning staff are gonna go.
Okay.
We'd have staff that could run the meeting.
Jordan, you're good for the 5th? Miss Kathy, are you good for the 5th? Don's out for the 5th?
Yep.
You're good for the 5th? Okay, so we'll be down one for the 5th and one for the 17th. No, everybody's here for the 17th.
No.
Sure, it can't make it.
Jordan will be,
Okay.
she's like, I'll make sure Jordan's here.
So you're gonna send out calendar invites so everybody remembers, and we have,
I'm not far.
July 17th as our new date and September 5th. Don't build a city for that. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, topics for member discussion, Jordan? First night out, you did great. Those were perfect questions.
God, I wish my first meeting was that easy.
All right.
I'm thankful to be here and I appreciate it.
Well, I just got word that our baby box is 3 weeks of construction, and then we're gonna be figuring out ribbon cutting, so we'll make sure you get a special invitation to that. Miss Kathy, you got any topics?
I do. The Watermelon Festival was a huge success. As always, couldn't be doing it without the city of Newberry. Amazing people. We appreciate the city and all the help, and our local businesses that support us. We gave $7,000 in scholarships this year.
That's awesome.
And then that doesn't count what we, provide for meals, for sports, teams, uniforms, camps,
Signs.
advertising. Yeah, so teachers' requests, things like that. So
That's amazing.
we're doing well, but because the reason we're doing well is from the support of the city and our businesses. We couldn't do it without our city and our businesses.
Well, I agree. We couldn't do it without you. That's why it's a great small town. So,
Yep,
you-
it is. It certainly is.
anything else? No? All right. Don?
Yes, so the organization I'm in, 100 Black Men, we having our 3rd annual aviation event, and that's for the youth, can come out and learn how to fly. They take them up in planes, they feed them, 2-day event. So we're looking for sponsors, but
It's the second year y'all done that?
I think it's the third.
Third?
Third year. So it's a big event. It's one of our annual events for the organization, and we try to get as many kids signed up. So I have the sign-up list. I can send anywhere. I can post them. I've been posting on social media. So ages 12 through 18. So, but kids want to learn how to fly, how to be pilots. They can teach them everything, and they actually take them up small little planes. So all day long.
What day is that?
June 23rd and 24th. 23rd is just a preliminary meet and greet, getting to know the kids and their family. Then the Saturday is from 10 to 4. So they take them up all day from 10:30 to 4. At Gainesville Airport.
Do you have sponsorship levels?
Yes, from silver all the way to gold.
When
From
you
a
post
top.
that on social media, does it include that?
Yes, it should, but I'm gonna post again today.
All right.
So they have all that.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank y'all for doing that. Naeem?
Thank you to the Watermelon Festival. I just want to give a shout out to just all the citizens of Newberry, old and new. It's amazing with all the growth that's occurring. You know, we still try to keep that small town vibe going, and a perfect prime example of that is the Watermelon Festival. You really see a small town come together, and we take a lot of pride in our town. So no matter how big we grow, it always seems that we still show that small town and how big of a heart we actually have. And thank you to those that have been here in Newberry, that have opened their doors to all the newcomers that have come in and shown. Someone said that Southern hospitality really does exist. I had someone that just moved here from Washington and heard about Southern hospitality, thought it was all a myth, and then when they moved to Newberry, they're like, Southern hospitality is real. Like, this is amazing. And that's a big thanks to our community and our citizens for, you know, being that open, that gracious to newcomers and the new generations that are coming to Newberry. So thank you.
Well said. I want to invite everybody to our first budget workshop. That's going to happen this Wednesday here in City Hall Meeting Room at 5:30. This is kind of a big picture overview. We won't really get into a lot of nuts and bolts at this one. It'll just kind of be, here's the things that we're trying to accomplish, right? Here's a list of all the different workshops. Brian, do we have the date for our next comprehensive?
I was just gonna, if you
You're
didn't
gonna-
get it,
you
I was gonna
wanna-
say.
go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the date of the second comprehensive plan workshop, open house, for the public is, June 14th, so it's next Wednesday.
June 14th?
Yes, sir.
I have it on mine as the 13th. I got it on 13th and the 14th. My calendar is full of comprehensive plan workshops, actually.
As well, I have the 13th.
Yeah.
only
I
have-
had one on there for today, actually, and it disappeared. No, I had it for tomorrow,
Tomorrow, yes, sir.
and that disappeared.
That was the original
Okay.
date. And
So what is is it the 13th? I'm looking at Missy.
Well, the original plan was to do on Wednesdays, but we couldn't do it on Wednesday, the 31st, because of a scheduling conflict. So we held it on Tuesday, the 30th, but we did not change the 14th to my knowledge. It's on my calendar as Wednesday, the 14th. We'll confirm with,
I'm gonna be in
CHW.
DC, so you can do it any day you want to.
I just said I got the email today, that's why.
Yeah, we.
well,
If
Yeah,
an
we all
email
got the
went
email
out
today
today, I'd
for
say go
13th.
with the email today. And that's the
and-
13th, Missy? Which is Tuesday.
I always get all the information last.
Do we get a seat at this?
This is like an open house, townhouse.
This is open
town-
house for the
yeah.
public, and I would like to just mention, there was some discussion on the forums about elected officials not being at the last one. The first open houses are for the general public. The elected officials are welcome, but it's meant to get input from the community, not necessarily our elected officials. There's another open house down the road where it'll be specific to the elected officials. So,
I think that one person realized that, when she called out a certain individual, that certain individual was, busy giving out diplomas for
Diplomas.
graduation. And, quickly realized what a mistake it was to call somebody out on the forum like that.
Mr. Mayor, I went, and I thought it was a great turnout, and I was surprised to see the outcome that was there, and I thought it was great, and from somebody who hasn't been in the city of Newberry for a very long time, I was flabbergasted by how much input was put into it, and thought process, and how each station explained what was going on in the process, and the input, each station was asking for input, so I thought it was a great idea to kind of bring the community into what's going on versus just sitting in the room and listening to the commission, so just my 2 cents.
I appreciate that. And I actually, just for the record, I discourage elected officials from going to those things when we're not supposed to be there, because when the elected officials show up, it generally becomes about the elected official's opinion, and we don't get a whole lot of feedback from the public, because everybody, well, what do you think? You know, you're elected, what are you gonna do? And our staff needs to be able to hear from the public. So if it wasn't for graduation, I would have been there. But, you know, graduation's kind of important for our kids. It's a good night, you know, it's fun. All right, Brian, we got any?
I just wanted to reiterate what Jordan said. I was very pleased at the turnout. I don't
Yeah.
think we've ever had a turnout for a planning workshop that was as well attended as this one.
I was surprised.
It was pretty nice when I walked in.
Yeah,
People were pretty much engaged.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay.
No more housing.
All right. You got any other dates, Brian, because we're not gonna meet again until July 17th. So is there between the 13th and the 17th? I know we have another one. What's the date of do we have another one set yet? I'm not gonna look at my calendar, because my calendar has them everywhere.
The elected officials open house is is in August.
Is in August, okay.
We'll post that date.
Okay, all right. My last comment is I'm taking students to DC on the 12th, so everybody send good vibes and pray for me. Yeah, we're gonna be driving up there, so, we've got a van, and we're gonna make it in one day, and it's gonna be great. I want to thank our representative, Kat Kamick. She's pulling out all the red carpet stops for these kids. They're gonna get a midnight tour of the Capitol building. We're gonna be up there for the Republican Democrat softball game. She got us into the White House, so we're able to take a lot of our up and coming president of FFA, student body president, senior president. So a lot of the next generation leaders will be there. So I'm going to be out with them, and we might get a little bit of city business in while we're there. But that's where we'll be for the next week. But I'll be back before the July 17th. Scott, you got anything you want to add? Okay. Public comment? You sat through the whole thing. Good job. Hearing none, we are adjourned.